My name is Emily Carter. I am 31. I write little notes for my friends. I cook pasta the same way every Sunday, and I laugh too loud at bad TV jokes. For 5 years, I was married to Mark Carter. He is 35, tall, and smiles like he means it. We met at a coffee shop in Boston. He spilled his latte on my book and apologized like it was the worst thing he had ever done. I forgave him because he was clumsy and kind. We dated, we moved in, we said "I do" in a small church with paper flowers. We promised each other forever. We promised to be gentle when the other was tired. We promised to tell the truth. Tonight was supposed to be a promise kept. Tonight was our 5th anniversary. We had flown to a small seaside town for 3 nights. I packed the blue dress I wore on our first date. Mark packed his black shirt and that stupid hat he uses at the beach. We booked a room with a balcony that looked over the water. The hotel smelled like salt and lemon. For weeks I planned the trip in my head. I imagined him opening the card I wrote and smiling, the way he smiles when I make him coffee without asking. I imagined us walking along the pier, holding hands, quieter but closer than we had been in a long time. We had been married 5 years, and sometimes marriage was easy and sometimes it was hard. We had bills and a dog named Milo who thought he owned the couch. We had crossed wires and missed calls. We had small fights about toothpaste and big fights about jobs and fear. Mark had been late on a few important things. He had stayed at work late on a Friday and come home with an apology that tasted like exhaustion. He had been distracted once during my birthday dinner, watching his phone when I tried to tell a story. I told myself the small things were small. I trusted him. Most of the time, trusting him felt safe. The trip started like all the pictures I saved on my phone. We laughed and took photos. I told him inside jokes, and he made the goofy face that always made me laugh. We sat at a table near a window and ate food that tasted like salt and sun. After dinner, we came back to the room and changed into softer clothes. I opened the window and let the ocean wind wake my skin. He said he was going to use the bathroom before bed. He said, "Just 5 minutes, Em." "Take your time," I said, thinking of nothing dangerous. I thought of him coming back with that warm smile. I thought of the pillow fight we promised and the way he always fought like he was saving the world. 5 minutes was not 5 minutes. 10 minutes turned into 20. 20 turned into 30. My toes were cold, and I curled them under my legs and tried to read a book. Milo snored softly on Mark's side of the bed. The lamp made a yellow pool of light. I told myself he was fine. Maybe he fell asleep in the bathroom. Maybe the shower was slow. Maybe he was just enjoying the hotel soap. I put on some music and tried to laugh at the songs we both hated but secretly loved. An hour passed. If you have ever been waiting for someone who does not come, you know how slow the clock can be. The second hand moves like a tired insect. My stomach dropped and made a bowl in my belly. I walked to the bathroom and knocked soft. "Mark." I called. My voice sounded like someone else's. No answer. I knocked again, harder this time. "Babe, are you okay?" Silence. I turned the handle. It was unlocked. The bathroom light was on. Steam lived on the mirror like fog on glass. A towel lay on the floor the way towels do when they are thrown and forgotten. The sink was empty. There was no sign that he was sleeping. The towel rack had his hat on it. The shower curtain was closed. I thought of 1,000 small things and made peace with each. Maybe he had gone to the lobby. Maybe he had gone outside to smoke. Maybe he was on the phone downstairs and had forgotten to tell me. I stepped out into the hall. The hallway smelled of lemon and was silent. The door to our room was slightly open like a mouth. I walked down the short hotel corridor and past other doors with soft lights and quiet laughter leaking out. I walked the small way to the elevator. My shoes made a small sound on the tile. The elevator blinked closed and opened and closed again. I felt the world get smaller. My breath was loud. I took the stairs, 4 steps at a time, the way I used to as a girl who wanted to be anywhere but there. At the bottom of the stairs, the carpet felt different, thick and strange under my feet. I walked to the lobby. The lobby had a man at the desk who looked like he had been waiting for a story. He smiled like someone in a movie. "Can I help you?" he asked. "Have you seen my husband?" I asked too quickly. He shrugged. No, ma'am. I saw a man go out about 15 minutes ago, but he looked like he had his hands full. My throat closed. What do you mean his hands were full? He pointed to the glass door. I looked outside. The night smelled like the ocean and the air felt cold on my face. I walked out through the door because walking felt like the only thing that kept me from sinking. The street had no one on it. There was a bench. There was a trash can. There was a small map of the town and its walking paths. There was no Mark. I walked faster and faster, like a small animal, until I reached a narrow alley between two restaurants. There, under a dim light, a man stood with his back turned, checking his phone. He had a jacket on that looked like Mark's and a hat that was too familiar. My heart kicked. I stepped closer and called his name. Mark turned. It was him. Relief flooded me so hard it made my knees weak. He smiled at me with a tired smile and held up his hands as if to show me nothing was wrong. Hey, Em. You look cold. I grabbed a packet of gum from the shop. He reached into his hand and I saw him hold something small. It was not gum. It was a phone. Not just any phone. It was my phone. It was my phone with the cracked screen. That phone I had lost 2 months before after a slip on the steps outside the school. I had told Mark how upset I was, and he had hugged me and said, "I'll buy you a new one." I had thanked him and then forgot about it. I had given up hours of thought to find the tiny things that make me whole again, the voice memos of my father, the photos of our first apartment, the silly notes. Now Mark held my old phone in his hand like a thing he had found on the street. And on the screen, even in the dark light of the alley, I saw a picture. The screen flashed a thumbnail of a video, a frozen frame. I should tell you what the picture was. You deserve to know. But the thing about a picture like this is that sometimes you see it and your brain does not let you breathe. The thumbnail on the screen showed Mark's face and another face very close to his. The other face smiled like it owned the night. I knew that smile. I had smiled with that same mouth in other rooms. It was not mine. My feet refused to move. For a second, the world shrank to the rectangle of that phone. The ocean noise turned into a distant TV. My fingers went cold. I reached out without meaning to. My hand touched his wrist. Mark laughed softly, a small laugh that did not reach his eyes. He said, "Cute, right? It's from a silly thing, don't overthink it." I looked at him. He kept holding the phone like it belonged to him. My chest felt like someone had tied a rope around it and pulled. The thumbnail showed something that could not be unsaw. It showed a hand on a shoulder and a mouth very close to a cheek. It showed my husband in a moment where my face was not the center. He looked at me like he thought I would be laughing with him. I did not laugh. My brain moved slow. The wind on my face felt sharp enough to cut. I had to make a choice right then. I had to decide if I would scream, if I would cry, if I would ask for an explanation. My mouth tasted like pennies. I looked at the street and the hotel and the bench and everything that had once been ordinary. Once ordinary was burning like paper. I felt a thing in my chest like a tiny stone. It was heavy and it told me something very simple. I was not the only one in his life. I had the full right to react right there. I had the right to take the phone and scroll, to demand answers, to break it on the pavement like a tool that failed me. I had the right to take the bus home and never look back. I had the right to do anything. Instead, I did something small. I smiled. Not because I was happy. Not because I wanted to make him think he had one. I smiled because I needed time. I needed space to breathe. Smiling kept my voice quiet and my thoughts sharp enough to hold a plan. When you are stunned, sometimes your body does the thing of protecting you by being still. I stepped back and looked at him from the side, the way a scientist might examine a specimen. His jaw tight. His hands slightly trembling. The phone was warm from being used. The thumbnail showed the other person's hair, dark and long. It showed the corner of a laugh. It showed a small necklace that caught the light. I knew that necklace. Or maybe I only thought I knew it because my mind wanted to pin everything to something. "You found my old phone?" I asked very quietly. He blinked and he shrugged. "Yeah, I always liked the old case. I carried it for a while and then decided to take some pictures for a stupid memory lane thing. You know how I am with these little nostalgia projects." His voice was too smooth. My fingers rested on my own pocket where my hotel card was. My back touched the cold brick. I felt like I was watching myself from behind a window. I remembered the months before our trip. I remembered Mark's missing time. I remembered the small lies he told, like missing a call because of work or being away with a colleague. I remembered the time he said he would clean the gutters and never did. I remembered nights when he fell asleep on the couch and I sat awake and counted the ceiling tiles until I needed to count the minutes. Each memory was a thread, and suddenly those threads formed a pattern, small moments arranged into a picture I had kept ignoring. "You should come back to the room," I said. "It's late. Milo is probably missing you." He held the phone lower as if to show me it was harmless. "Yeah, I'll go get the gum and come right up." He began to turn. My brain screamed at me, "Take the phone, tear it open, get proof, get proof, get proof." But something slower, older, wiser said, "Don't burn the bridge before you know the ground on the other side." I watched him walk away, the hat pulled low, the phone pressed to his palm. The thumbnail glowed like a small, terrible sun. Then the world did a small, sharp thing. A car drove fast through the street and splashed water from a puddle onto the pavement. The noise startled us both. Mark stepped back, and for a second the phone slipped. It did not fall. He held it like it was a secret too bright to drop. I followed him with my eyes all the way to the hotel door. He stopped, he checked his hair, he looked around like a man who had almost been found doing something small and private. He looked like he had forgotten he was married for a second, and that forgetfulness had a smell, like cheap cologne and late-night pizza. When he turned to go back up to the room, he did not look at me the way he looked at me on our first date. He did not look like a man in love. He looked like a man who had been holding something close for so long he thought the closeness was normal. I walked back to the hotel with a careful step, as if the ground might crack open. Once inside, the clerk smiled at me and asked if I needed anything. I asked for nothing because I wanted to hold something, the evidence in my mind. I wanted to confirm it like a seal. Back in the room, the light was on and the bed smelled like soap. Milo jumped up and licked my face the way dogs do when they sense the dark in their people. I hugged him because his heart beat like a small drum and his breath smelled like old bones and banana. It helped to touch something that was pure. Mark came in 15 minutes later. He was different. He kissed my forehead in a way that was half apology, half distance. He said, "You okay?" Like that was a small thing to ask. I held my face very still. My hands did not shake, but my mouth tasted of stone. "I'm fine," I said. He smiled and went to the small suitcase to pull out something he had bought, a cheap shell necklace that he said he saw on the pier and thought of me. He handed it to me like it was a cure. I took it and I let his fingers brush mine while I looked at the tiny shell. It felt like a child's toy. I kept my face calm. My hands closed around the necklace like a trap. We sat on the balcony and watched the water, and I pretended like everything was ordinary. I let him talk and I let him tell jokes about the traffic and the waiter who gave us too much bread. I listened. I laughed when it felt right. I wrote a text to my oldest friend and typed 3 silly words to keep my hands busy. Inside me, my brain had already made a decision. It was a small, bright thing that felt like metal. I would not let this go on. If there was someone else, if there had been a secret pocket of another life he had been carrying, I would not be the person who pretended it did not exist. For 5 years I had loved and given and opened myself. I would not continue to starve for someone who fed on secrets. The necklace was heavy with meaning and light with nothing. I slipped it back into its paper and put it on the dresser like a forgotten toy. I did not tell him about the phone. I did not scream. I did not pack a bag. I let him sleep that night, and I watched the map of the ceiling until the first blue-gray of morning came through the curtains. I told myself I would wait until I had proof. I told myself patience was a weapon. I whispered to Milo that everything would be okay even though I did not yet know if it would. When morning came, I had a small plan. I would take my time. I would find the truth without breaking into the house of his life and shattering everything without reason. I would look. I would watch. I would not make a sound. Then at breakfast, as we walked into the small cafe by the pier, Mark's phone buzzed on the table. He reached for it with a relaxed hand, and the screen lit with a message preview. It was a name I recognized. It was not a friend. It was not a coworker. It was a name that had showed up in the edge of memory, like the face from the thumbnail that I had seen the night before. My heart stopped in the middle of a breath. Mark looked at the screen and smiled and said, "Oh, that's just Jenna. She wants to know if we're free for coffee later." I swallowed. The world turned a shade paler. He laughed and put his phone down. The cafe music kept playing. Milo sniffed at a crumb. The waiter tapped his card and said something about the weather. For a moment, the room held its breath like I did. I had the phone in my mind like a bright, sharp thing I could not touch. I knew, with a kind of cold certainty, that I had seen enough to change my life. Not because I had proof that was spelled out in words and pictures, but because there are things you see that rearrange the furniture of your heart. The thumbnail on that phone, the name on the screen, the way his hand moved, these things made a new room in my mind where only choices fit. I felt a small, steady rage like a slow river start to boil. It was not just about the phone or the name. It was about the slow peeling away of promises, the small lies that add up until the person you love is a stranger with your old photograph. The waiter brought us coffee. Mark took a sip and smiled at me with a face that still belonged to me in small, safe pieces. He reached across the table to touch my hand. For a second, I let the old map of us lie over the new map, and I felt something ache and something decide. I nodded and let the touch happen. Inside, the decision glowed like a small coin I was keeping for the right moment. Then the extreme thing happened. As we stood up to leave, someone outside the cafe shouted a man's name. The door flew open. People turned. Mark's phone, still on the table, buzzed again with a call. The screen flashed a picture I did not expect and could not ignore. It was the face from the thumbnail, but fuller. She stood in the doorway with a bag over her shoulder and a look on her face like a key had just turned in a lock. She looked straight at Mark. She was smiling. She waved. Mark turned white. My knees trembled. The cafe felt suddenly too small and too loud. Milo whimpered by my heels. The woman looked at me, and for a split second, her eyes met mine. She did not look away. That look was a thing that asked a question I did not want to answer. Mark's smile died like a light losing power. The world narrowed to the three of us in the doorway. The woman took a step forward as if she belonged there. Mark's mouth opened and closed without sound. I felt like I had been dropped into an ocean that I could not swim in. I knew then, with the terrible clarity of a bell striking at midnight, that nothing would be ordinary again. And I also knew something else. I knew, with a cold and small certainty, that whatever I did next would decide everything for the 5 years we had built. The woman in the doorway smiled and waved like she belonged in a story I had not been told. For a second, everything was slow. People around us kept moving like the world had not changed. A spoon clinked. A baby laughed. The wind blew some salt through the open door. Mark stood frozen with his hand hovering over his phone. The woman walked in like she had walked into her own house. She was about 30, maybe younger. Her hair fell in dark waves. She wore a simple dress and a bag over her shoulder. She had the kind of face people remember, not because it was loud or pretty, but because it looked like it held a lot of life. When her eyes met mine, she did not look away. She did not look guilty. She only looked like someone who had found a place she liked. "Jenna," Mark said, and his voice sounded small in my ears. She smiled. "Hi, Mark." "Hi, Emily." She said my name like she had been saying it for a long time. She reached for Mark like a friend might reach, easy and sure. I watched, and a little noise rose inside me like a trapped bird. I think Mark wanted to say something quick, to fix a thing that needed fixing. He wanted to tell a small lie that would slide over the truth like butter over toast. But the thing about lies is that sometimes you see the edges. "Hey," he said again, and then he tried to laugh like nothing heavy was here. "What are you doing here?" "Oh, I had a late train and I needed a place for my bag," Jenna said. "I thought I might find a sitter or a quiet coffee. I didn't think I would run into you." She sat down at our table as if she had always been invited. She did not ask permission. She smiled and said, "Nice to meet you, Emily." Then she looked at me like she wanted to keep things polite and light. I kept my face calm the way actors do when they act surprised but small. I smiled and I asked questions like someone reading a book she already knew. Hi, I said. Nice to meet you too. Mark's voice came out thin. She's a friend from work. We ran into each other by the pier. Crazy small world. He said it fast as if the words would make the moment disappear. Jenna laughed the soft laugh that shows people like her. We actually bumped into each other last night. Small town, huh? I wanted to ask 1,000 things. I wanted to ask how long they had been friends, why my old phone was in his hand, whose thumbprint was on it, why the thumbnail I saw the night before showed them so close. I wanted answers big and loud that would ring out and make the air feel clean. Instead, I asked small questions. I watched their faces. I learned how people try to act like the truth is only a small crack. They told small stories. They talked about the old coffee shop near the train station and joked about the waiter who always forgot sugar. The three of us spoke like people who had known each other in a different life. Light words, easy smiles. I watched Mark's eyes and saw his mouth curve for jokes when Jenna laughed. I could count the tiny ways he leaned toward her when he spoke and the tiny ways he did not lean toward me. Every little lean was a quiet proof. After a few minutes, I felt like I was standing on the edge of a pool and someone had lifted me by the shoulders. I could step back and be safe, or I could step in and see how deep the water was. The safe choice would be to say something angry, demand that he admit the truth, make him confess. The dangerous choice was to move quietly. I had a plan, a small, patient plan. My plan was not to destroy that minute with a scene. My plan was to collect the truth, even if it took days. I stood to leave. I did not want to stay in the middle of their easy conversations like a rock in a river. I'm going to walk Milo, I said. I gave Milo the leash and he trotted happily. The dog had no clue that he was walking on a rope tied to a heart. Outside, the air felt small and cold. I walked away from the cafe with the same light step I used to take when I pretended everything was fine. Mark called after me, but I did not turn. I wanted him to follow and call. I wanted him to tell me he loved me and that it was all nothing. Instead, he stayed behind and talked to Jenna. I could see them through the glass, two people leaning close like they were pressing their shoulders to keep a secret warm. We walked slowly toward the pier. Milo sniffed every trash can and every shadow like he was trying to understand a place that had been changed. I let him pull me a little so I had an excuse to keep my eyes busy. I watched Mark through my peripheral vision. He and Jenna walked out the door together, carrying the same small, easy laugh. I knew then that the thumbnail on my hand was not a trick of the light. There was a shape to this, and it did not belong to me. We came back to the hotel, and the room felt the same as before, but not the same. The bed was the same bed with his side rumpled the way it always was. The balcony faced the same water. The shells on the night table were the same shells I had collected on childhood trips. But now the room had a new smell. The smell of hidden things. I spent the rest of the day doing small, ordinary things like someone testing the water for safety. I walked the pier and took a picture of the sunset like a tourist. I ate a sandwich and let the crumbs drop. I called my friend Claire and told her a small version of what happened, know all the details, just enough to make her quiet. She said she would come the next day if I wanted. I paced my own mind. I wrote things on a napkin and then threw it away. I tried to sleep and woke every hour. When it was late, I pretended to sleep until Mark came back. He came in smelling like outside air and like the soap of other women's hands, as if his body had been touched by a different story. That night I did something small that felt very big. I opened his suitcase while he was in the shower. I did it quietly like a person turning the pages of a book. I told myself I was only looking for proof so I could make a wise choice later. I told myself I would not do anything cruel. But there are ways the heart convinces the hands to act. Inside his suitcase, I found small things that belonged to the life he had outside of me. There was a receipt from a small restaurant in a town 3 hours away. The date on the receipt matched a day he claimed to have been at work. There was a hair tie the color of Jenna's dress. There was a tiny bottle of lotion I had never seen in our bathroom. There were napkins with 2 sets of lipstick marks on them, one that matched mine and one that matched a darker shade. My hands closed around each thing and I felt the edges of my world tilt. My breath made white clouds in the dark. My fingers trembled. I wanted to take everything and throw it in the trash like a bad dream. I wanted to stage a scene where he had to see me holding the proof and somehow the fat truth would be thin again. But instead, I folded each receipt and returned it to its place. I took a picture of the receipts and the hair tie and sent them to my friend with one line. "Do you think I'm crazy?" Claire texted back with 3 words and a heart emoji. "Not crazy. Get proof." I put the things back. I left his suitcase as if I had never been inside it. Then I made tea and sat on the balcony and watched the water move in the same slow way as before, as if the sea knew how to keep secrets and the world did not. The next day, I followed a small plan. I would not scream in public. I would not break things. I would find out the truth like a person solving a puzzle. I asked the hotel clerk about Jenna. He looked confused and then he said, "Oh yes. Jenna? She checked in today. Room 312. The air left me like a balloon. I listened for the part where he would tell me she was just passing through town. He simply shrugged and said, "She paid cash." Cash. There is something about cash that makes stories feel ancient. Cash feels like a thing people use when they want their footprints to vanish. I asked for more. The clerk said the woman had asked for a quiet room. She had a key in a small brown envelope. The clerk looked at me like he might be part of a secret, and then he smiled and went back to polishing the desk. I walked down the hall toward 312. My heart knocked against my ribs like a child asking to be let out. Room numbers had always been small things on the wall. They were just numbers. But that number felt like a door with a heavy lock. I wanted to knock and ask questions. I wanted to push that door and find the tale inside. Instead, I stood at the end of the hallway and watched the door. I saw a shadow move behind the curtain, then a silhouette. I watched Mark walk by with a cup of coffee and his face careful. He did not see me. The curtain moved. The silhouette had the shape of 2 people. My breath short-circuited like an old light. I did not want to confront them in the hallway. I wanted to be wise. I wanted a proof that would not be melted by emotion. I decided to wait. I made a plan to check the trash outside the room later to find receipts or wrappers. I thought about calling a private investigator, but the idea felt too big and too public. I thought about following Jenna when she left, but I feared she would notice. I went down to the lobby, sat at the small table, and pretended to read a book. My eyes kept shifting like a camera. I watched the clock on the wall and watched the elevator doors. For hours, nothing happened. I listened to the small hum of the fridge and the creak of chairs. I sipped tea and let my hands be steady. Then the extreme thing happened. At 4 in the afternoon, the fire alarm in the hotel went off with a loud, sudden siren. People rose and walked out like slow rivers moving. The bellman opened the doors and told us to stay calm. Smoke was not visible, but the alarm kept screaming like a child. People shuffled outside in slippers and robes. I felt my heart beat like a drum inside a hollow chest. At the same time the alarm began, a man ran out of room 312 with a travel bag slung over his shoulder. He looked like he had been startled awake from a deep sleep. He pushed past the crowd and did not see me. He ran out to the street and a taxi slammed its horn. The man got into the taxi and it left. A woman in the crowd cried out, "That was Jenna." The words cut through the alarm and my eyes were pulled to the empty doorway where someone had been standing only moments before. People milled around like sheep, confused and talking loud enough that the noise swallowed the alarm. The clerk said it was probably a false alarm, but he called maintenance anyway. My legs felt like dawn, soft and new and shaky. I walked toward room 312 because it felt like the only place the story was now writing itself. The door was open a crack. The room smelled like perfume and lemon soap. There was a chair in the middle of the floor and a scarf on it that looked like it had been dropped mid-thought. On the table there was a small envelope with a name on it, Mark. It was open and a card half peeked out. I stepped closer and saw a receipt on the floor stamped with a nearby city's name. The date matched the night Mark said he had been at work. There were 2 cups on the table. There was a napkin with a lipstick mark. There was also something else, a small black box, the kind phones come in. It was empty. My hands went cold. The alarm kept singing. People stood outside with blankets. The clerk stood by the door and looked at me and then at the room with a face like someone who had seen a small accident. He said, "She left in a hurry." Maybe the alarm scared her. The alarm made everything feel urgent, like a kettle about to boil. I felt a pull in my chest like the tide. I wanted to run and stop her. I wanted to take the taxi and follow. I wanted to grab the man who left and shake the truth out of him. Instead, the crowd moved me back like a river moving. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. I took it out with fingers that felt like they belonged to someone else. A new message had come from an unknown number. The message had a single image attached. The thumbnail was small, but I knew it. It was a picture of Mark and Jenna together in a close pose. The timestamp was 2 hours ago. The message had one line of text under the image: "You deserve to know." My heart slammed against my ribs like someone running. The hotel alarm wailed. People talked. The taxi horns honked. My mouth tasted like pennies. I stood there with the phone in my hand. The unknown number called me immediately after sending the picture, but they did not leave a voice message. I let it ring once and then I shut it off. My hands were too loud on the phone. I wanted to open the picture. I wanted to see everything that lay inside it. I wanted to know if the picture was proof that Mark had been with Jenna in a way that deserved the ending I felt in my hands. I wanted to breathe and throw up and scream and be held. I wanted to break things and then build them back better. Instead, I did what I had been doing for days. I breathed and I kept a calm face and I planned. My plan had to be sharp like a knife and slow like water. I would not be baited by an unknown number. I would not act like a person stretched thin by pain. I would collect, I would save. I would make the truth so strong it could not hide. I saved the picture to a folder on my phone. I put his suitcase receipt photo with it. I texted my friend, "New proof. I have to know more." Claire replied with, "Stay safe. Don't go alone." The alarm finally stopped. People drifted back into their rooms like little ships. The clerk said it had been a false alarm, but his face did not match the words. He looked at me and said, "Sorry about that, ma'am." His eyes flicked to the open room and then back to me. She must have been really scared. I looked at the open doorway one more time and felt the cold shape of the next step. The new proof on my phone shone like a small sun. My hands felt the weight of the choice in front of me. I had been patient and I had watched. I had collected proof and I had kept my face calm. Now I had something that could move the story forward. Now something that would push my life into a new shape. I could use it however I wanted. I could make the world know and watch it break. I could keep the picture and let it live as a small, private wound. Before I could make that choice, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from an unknown number that had a recorded voice that said simply, "We thought you should see this," and then played 5 seconds of static and hung up. The call left me with a small, cold fear like a bee sting. I stood looking at the doorway and at my phone and at the blue ocean in the distance. The sky had the same color as the sea, honest and wide. For a second I considered everything, my vows, the small promises we had made, the shell necklace on the dresser, the way Milo slept with one paw over his nose. I looked at the image saved on my phone and then I did something that felt final and quiet. I pressed the image to open it. My fingers tapped the screen. The image grew. The room seemed to tilt. I saw Mark's hand on Jenna's back. I saw a face smiling like a sun. I saw the exact moment the two of them were close enough that ordinary people might not notice anything wrong. The picture was small and terrible and true. At that moment the hotel room door swung open behind me. I had not expected anyone. I turned slowly, the picture still burning in my mind, and there he stood in the doorway, Mark, wet from the shower, like a man who had been remade by water. His eyes were wide, and he reached for something on the nightstand. Behind him, in the hall, 2 hotel staff stood looking worried. One of them held an envelope, and the envelope had my name written on it in a hand I did not recognize. Mark's mouth moved without sound. My phone slipped a little in my hand and the picture blurred. The room seemed to close in like a book. My cheeks went hot like a shame. I did not know what would happen next. The envelope on the nightstand was small, white, and waiting. The hotel staff looked at me like they had a secret they could not tell. And the picture on my phone was still open, showing something I had already seen but needed to look at again. The extreme event that had started the chapter had not ended. It had only become sharper. The door in the room was open and someone had stepped into the next part of the story. I stood there, breathing, with the image in my hand, while the hotel clock ticked like a small, honest judge. Mark stood in the doorway like someone who had walked into the wrong movie. His hair was wet. Water dripped down the side of his neck and disappeared into the collar of his shirt. Behind him, the two hotel staff members shifted nervously. One held the small white envelope like it was hot in his hand. My phone was still open to the picture, the one of him and Jenna far too close. I didn't try to hide it. I didn't lower my hand or lock my screen. I wanted him to see it. I wanted him to see the thing that had already split something inside me. Emily, he said softly, like my name was a fragile glass he didn't know how to hold anymore. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat felt thick and heavy, like all the words I needed were trapped behind a door in my chest. One of the hotel staff cleared his throat. Ma'am, someone dropped this off at the front desk for you. We were told to bring it up immediately. The envelope was plain white. My name was written neatly on the front. Not rushed. Not messy. Almost careful. Who gave it to you? I asked. We don't know, one staff member said. They left before we could ask questions. I nodded and stepped forward to take it. The paper felt cold. The kind of cold that lives under a door and sneaks into your bones. Mark stepped into the room. Can we talk? Please. He glanced at the hotel staff, then back at me. Can they give us a moment? His voice was tight. Scared. Maybe guilty. Maybe something else. The staff hesitated, then nodded and left, closing the door behind them. The click of the door sounded like a judge's gavel. Now it was just the two of us. And the envelope. And the picture burning into my hand. I can explain, Mark said immediately, stepping closer. I raised one hand without looking at him, a small gesture telling him to stop. He froze in place. My fingers slid under the flap of the envelope. The glue cracked softly. I pulled out what was inside. It was a folded piece of paper. A picture fell out first, a printed one. Actual paper. Not a digital screen. A print. The kind that someone takes the time to create. It was the same picture I had opened on my phone. But this one had words written across the bottom. In black ink. In careful handwriting. It said, "This wasn't the only time." My heart threw itself against my ribs so hard it hurt. Mark stepped forward fast. Emily, please give me that. I stepped back. Don't. Don't touch me. The words came out steady but low. My voice surprised even me. Strong. Like someone older and wiser had borrowed my tongue. He stopped moving. He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. I unfolded the note. It was short. Only 4 sentences. Emily, you don't know me, but you deserve the truth. You deserve better than what he's been doing. Check room 312's trash before they clean it. And don't let him talk you out of what you've already seen. My breath stopped. Room 312. Jenna's room. My eyes rose slowly and met Mark's. His expression had gone from nervous to panicked. Emily, he whispered. This is nothing. Someone is trying to start drama. Someone is trying to hurt us. I held up the printed picture between us. Who took this, Mark? He swallowed. Hard. Who wrote this note? He didn't answer. Why is my old phone in your hand in that video? He looked away. Why did she show up at breakfast like she knew you? He closed his eyes. Why is she staying in this hotel? Why did you hide it from me? My voice cracked but did not break. Why do I have a message from an unknown number sending me pictures of you too? Mark ran a hand through his hair. His fingers trembled. It's not like that. I swear. I swear to you. It's not what it looks like. I laughed, not because anything was funny, but because the sound came out before I could stop it. It never is, right? I said quietly. Everyone who cheats says that. He flinched like the words stung him. Please, he said again. I can explain everything if you just. No, I said, stepping away from him. If you have something to say, you can say it from over there. He looked at me with something like fear. Real fear. Not fear of losing a fight, but fear of losing something he never thought I would take. I picked up the printed photo again and studied Jenna's face. The closeness. The ease. The softness in her eyes. It wasn't a one-time moment caught by accident. It looked familiar. Practiced. Repeated. Emily, Mark said in a voice so low it almost didn't reach me. I made a mistake. My breath caught. A mistake. One word. A whole earthquake. How long? I asked. He hesitated. How long? I repeated. Mark looked at the carpet. A few months. The floor under me dropped away. I felt like I stepped into air. And you brought me here, I whispered. To celebrate 5 years of marriage, while you were with her? That's not, he started. I cut him off. Don't lie to me again. His jaw tightened. Something in him shifted, something small but dark. The thing men show when the mask starts slipping. She means nothing, he said. You mean everything. I swear. She's just. Just what? I asked sharply. Just someone you disappear for? Just someone you keep secrets with? Just someone you take photos with? Just someone whose room you visit? Just someone who sends you messages while I sit across from you at breakfast? Mark winced like each word was a stone thrown at him. She's not what you think. No, I snapped. Stop. Stop talking like I'm stupid. He froze. Stop talking like you didn't let this happen. Stop talking like this wasn't a choice. Stop talking like you didn't hurt me. The silence after that cracked the air. I took a breath and looked at him, really looked at him, and something inside me shifted. This wasn't a man who had made one mistake. This was a man who had gotten comfortable lying. A man who thought he could shape the truth with his mouth. A man who thought I loved him too much to leave. A man who thought my kindness meant blindness. I stepped toward him, slow, steady, quiet. His eyes widened like he thought I would collapse or cry or scream. Instead, I said, "Get out." He didn't move. "Emily," I said, I repeated, my voice calm and cold, "Get out." "Where am I supposed to go?" he asked, desperate. I shrugged. "Maybe room 312. He closed his eyes like the words had slapped him. "I'm not leaving you," he whispered. "Not like this." "You already left me," I said softly. "You just left me months ago." "I'm only catching up." He shook his head hard. No, we can fix this. I'll cut her off. I'll show you everything. I'll prove it. I held up the printed picture between us like a mirror. "You already proved it." He looked at the floor because he couldn't look at me. His shoulders sagged. His hands shook. His breath came in short, broken pieces. Seeing him crumble didn't make me feel powerful. It just made me feel tired. So tired. I stepped back again and picked up Milo's leash. Milo stood and wagged his tail, sensing the shift. I put the picture on the dresser. I tucked the note into my pocket. I grabbed my jacket. "I need air," I said. Mark stepped forward. Please. Don't leave the room. We need to talk." "We will," I said. "But not right now. Not with you in my face. And not with you lying to me." "I'm not." I held up one hand. "Not another word, Mark. Not one." His mouth snapped shut. I opened the door. The hallway smelled like fresh paint and bleach. The hotel was quiet, too quiet. As I stepped out, Mark reached for my arm. "Emily," he whispered. "Don't do anything stupid." I pulled my arm away so fast his fingers barely grazed my sleeve. Then I said something I didn't plan. Something that came from a place deeper than anger. "Why?" I asked softly. "Is stupid your job?" His eyes widened. And then I left. I walked down the hall, Milo trotting beside me. I walked out of the hotel. I walked into the cold, salty wind. I walked until the hotel was just a small dot behind me. I didn't cry. Not yet. I couldn't. Instead, I breathed in the cold and let it sharpen me. Because something inside me had finally clicked into place. This wasn't the end of the story. This was just the beginning of my revenge. But before I could take even one step toward that revenge, before I could even decide what it would look like, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text. From the same unknown number. It said, "Emily, you need to see the video too." My knees almost gave out. There was a video. A video of what? A video taken by who? My heart pounded. My thumb hovered over the message. Before I could tap it, someone tapped my shoulder from behind. I spun around fast and saw someone standing there who made my stomach drop to my feet. Someone who should not have known I was here. Someone who should not have been able to find me. Someone who should not have been part of the story at all. Their first words made my skin crawl. Emily, we need to talk about your husband. And the chapter ends there. The person standing behind me was the last face I expected to see on that quiet street near the pier. Her jacket was zipped up to her chin. She looked nervous, not guilty, not sly, nervous. Like someone who had been carrying a secret too heavy for one person. Emily, she whispered again. Please don't be scared. I came because you need to know the whole truth. My heart thudded so loudly I thought she heard it. Her name was Haley. My husband's younger sister. The sister who hardly ever called me. The sister who always seemed distant. The sister who lived 3 states away. What are you doing here? I breathed out. Haley rubbed her hands together like they were freezing. I wanted to reach you before he twists everything. Milo barked once, sensing my tension. I tightened my grip on his leash. Before who twists everything? I asked, even though the answer was carved into my chest already. Mark. Her eyes softened. My brother. She said my brother with a sadness that didn't match a loyal sibling. It sounded like someone saying the name of a person who had disappointed them too many times. I swallowed. Hard. Haley, what's going on? How did you even find me here? She hesitated, then held up her phone. On the screen was the same message I had received. You need to know the truth. Sent from the same unknown number. My stomach nodded. Someone sent that to you too? No, she whispered. They sent it to me, first. Weeks ago. That stopped my breath. What? Haley nodded. I didn't know what to do with it. I kept telling myself it wasn't real. That maybe someone was trying to hurt Mark or our family. But then, the messages kept coming. Pictures. Screenshots. Times. Places. Everything. My skin went cold. You saw all this, weeks ago? I asked quietly. Tears filled her eyes. I didn't want to believe it, Emily. I swear. He's my brother. But after the 4th message, after I saw him and that woman together, I couldn't pretend anymore. That woman. Jenna. Something inside me twisted so violently I felt my knees wobble. So you came here? I asked. I came today because the sender told me exactly where you were. Haley looked around like she feared being watched. They said you were about to see the truth on your own. And that you'd need support. Support. From Mark's sister. The world felt upside down. Haley, I whispered, why didn't you come to me sooner? Her voice cracked. Because I knew once this got out, everything would break. Our family. You. Him. Everything. And I wasn't ready to be the one who caused it. Her honesty cut through the fog in my head. I took a slow, steady breath. Do you know who is sending these messages? No, she said. But they know things. Things only someone very close to him could know. Her gaze drifted to the pier. Emily, the video they sent me. You haven't watched it yet, right? I froze. I haven't, I said. Not yet. She nodded slowly. It's worse than the picture. A small scream climbed up my throat but stayed trapped behind my teeth. My hand shook. I had to ask. What's in the video, Haley? She inhaled sharply. You need to see it yourself. But it's not what you think. That sentence didn't calm me. It scared me. Does Jenna know about it? I asked. Yes, she said immediately. Actually, she's part of it. My chest tightened. Part of what? Haley looked over her shoulder like she feared someone was listening. Emily. Jenna isn't just someone Mark cheated with. Her voice dropped to a whisper. She's someone he made promises to. Promises. Plural. My pulse jumped. What kind of promises? Haley opened her mouth. But then she froze. Her eyes widened. Her face drained of color. She stared past me. Emily, she whispered, barely breathing, don't turn around. My heart slammed against my ribs. Why? I breathed. Because someone is watching us. My blood went cold. Who? I asked. Haley swallowed hard. The same person who's been sending the messages. A chill ran through me. I whispered, where are they? Across the street, she said. Next to the lamppost. Gray hoodie. Head down. Very slowly, I looked. A person in a gray hoodie stood under the lamppost, hands in pockets, head tilted just enough to see us. Not a tourist. Not someone walking by. Someone waiting. Watching. Following. My stomach flipped. But the moment they saw me turn, the person stepped back. Then walked away. Calm. Smooth. Not rushed. Like they were done with whatever they came for. "We need to go," Haley whispered urgently. "Emily, we need to get somewhere safe." Safe? My voice cracked. Safe from who? From what? From whoever knows more about Mark than either of us, she said. My breath shook. Why didn't you call the police? Her voice dropped low. Because nothing illegal has happened yet. And the messages weren't threatening. Just informational. The police wouldn't do anything. She grabbed my arm, not hard, but firm. Come on. Let's go somewhere private. I followed her numbly, my mind spinning. We walked down the pier, past the boats, past the small ice cream shop, past the benches where couples sat eating fried shrimp and laughing. Everything looked normal. Everything felt wrong. We stopped at a quiet spot behind a row of tourist shops. The air smelled like old wood and seaweed. Milo sniffed around nervously. Haley turned toward me. Her face looked older, worn down by knowing things she didn't want to know. Emily, she said gently, I need you to listen very carefully. I nodded, my hands shaking. I didn't come here to protect him, she said. I came here to protect you. My throat tightened. Why? She took a long breath. Because Mark isn't who you think he is. My heart stopped for a full second. What do you mean? She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out something small. A flash drive. Silver. Clean. New. My pulse boomed in my ears. This was mailed to me 2 days ago, she whispered. No return address. I felt dizzy. What's on it? She pressed the drive into my palm. The video. The video. The one the unknown number said I needed to see. The one someone had been pushing toward me for days. The one that could destroy my entire marriage. I held it tightly. It felt heavier than metal. It felt like the weight of 5 years. Haley's eyes softened. But before you watch it, you need to know something else. My heart skipped. What? She looked around again, making sure we were alone. Emily. Jenna isn't the only woman. My legs nearly gave out. I had to hold onto the railing to stay upright. What do you mean? I whispered. Haley swallowed like she tasted something bitter. He's been doing this for longer than you think. With more women than you think. I thought it stopped after college. I thought marriage changed him. I thought you changed him. Her eyes filled with tears. But, Emily, the truth is, Mark never stopped. Not then. Not now. Something in my chest cracked open. Pain. Rage. Shock. Grief. All tangled together. I whispered, Haley, why are you telling me this now? She wiped her eyes. Because the sender warned me that if I didn't tell you everything, something worse would happen. Worse. My voice shook. Worse than my marriage collapsing? No, she said quietly. Worse for you. My blood turned to ice. What do you mean? Haley finally looked me straight in the eyes. Her voice was so soft I barely heard her. They said Mark is planning something. Something against you. And that the video explains everything. My breath caught so sharply it hurt. My husband. The man I married. The man I shared a home with. The man I trusted. Planning something against me? I shook my head hard. No. No, Haley, that doesn't make sense. Mark wouldn't. She grabbed both my hands. Emily. Please. Listen. You have to watch the video. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it was bruising my ribs. I looked down at the flash drive. Tiny. Cold. Holding secrets heavy enough to change my life forever. I'll watch it, I whispered. Haley nodded quickly. Not here. Not anywhere Mark can interfere. She looked over her shoulder again, then leaned in close and whispered 5 words into my ear. He's not who you married. A shiver broke down my spine. Before I could respond, a loud voice called my name from behind us. A voice I knew. A voice that didn't belong here. A voice that should not have found me. Emily? I turned, and my lungs collapsed. It wasn't Mark. It wasn't Jenna. It wasn't a hotel staff member. It was someone from home. Someone from Boston. Someone who knew me well enough to look terrified when they saw the flash drive in my hand. They stepped closer and whispered urgently, "Emily, don't watch anything she gave you." Haley stiffened. I froze. My heart hammered. "What?" I whispered. They shook their head, eyes wide with fear. "Whatever you do, do not watch that video." Two opposite warnings. Two people terrified. Both begging me to choose them. My mind spun. My hands shook so hard the flash drive nearly slipped from my fingers. The person standing a few feet from me, the person telling me not to watch the video, was someone I trusted. Someone who had never raised their voice at me, never lied to me, never made me doubt my reality. It was Claire, my best friend since college. My ride or die, the only person who saw me cry when my mother died, the only person who held my hand the day I married Mark. And the only person I had secretly texted the night before when everything started falling apart. She should have been in Boston, at work, living her normal life. Instead, she stood on a quiet pier in another state, breathing hard like she had sprinted from a nightmare. "Claire," I whispered, stunned. "What are you doing here?" She didn't answer right away. Her eyes darted between Haley and the flash drive in my hand. "Emily," Claire said slowly, carefully, "walk toward me." Right now. My stomach twisted. Haley stepped in front of me, protective like a shield. "She's not going anywhere with you," Haley said, her voice sharp. Claire's jaw tightened. "Move, Haley. This doesn't concern you." "The hell it doesn't," Haley snapped. "I'm the one trying to keep her safe." "Says who?" Claire fired back. "Some anonymous number texting you? A stranger leaving notes? A video from a mailbox? You're trusting the wrong people." Haley took a step closer. "And you're trusting the wrong brother." There it was again. The cold truth I had been avoiding since the beach, the cafe, the hallway, the picture, the note. The truth that broke my heart long before anyone admitted it. My husband was not the man I married. But now there was something else. Worse. Stranger. More dangerous. Two people telling me opposite things. Both of them terrified. Both of them convinced I had to choose. I held up my hands, shaking. "Stop. Both of you stop. Just tell me what's going on." Claire stepped forward, desperate. "Emily, if you watch that video, you'll make the biggest mistake of your life." Haley cut in sharply. "If she doesn't watch it, she'll walk right into whatever Mark is planning." Claire turned on Haley. "You don't know what you're talking about. You only saw bits and pieces." Haley glared. "And you've seen what? Him flirting with waitresses? Him lying to Emily's face?" "Yes," Claire said. "And far worse. That's why I don't want her to watch the video." My breath hitched. "Why not?" Claire closed the distance between us, lowering her voice. "Emily, the video was edited." Haley scoffed. "No, it wasn't." "Yes, Haley. It was. Whoever sent it wants Emily to believe a story that isn't true." Haley shook her head. "You're lying." Claire looked directly into my eyes. "The video isn't a warning. It's a trap." A chill crawled down my spine. Haley stepped between us again. "Emily, she's trying to protect Mark." "I'm trying to protect her," Claire snapped. "The truth is bigger than Mark. Bigger than cheating. Bigger than anything you've seen." I stepped back, dizzy. The world spun like a carnival ride. "Claire," I whispered, "tell me exactly why I can't watch it." She swallowed, tears gathering in her eyes. "Because the video was made to make you think Mark betrayed you in the worst way possible. But the full story," she hesitated, "the full story shows something else." "What?" I asked. Her answer hit me like a wave. "It shows he's being blackmailed." My heart stopped. "Blackmailed?" Haley stepped back in shock. "No. That's impossible. He's cheating, Claire." Emily saw the picture. "Yes," Claire said, "and he did cheat. I'm not saying he's innocent. But whoever recorded that video didn't do it to expose the cheating. They did it to control him." I felt like someone pushed the ground from under my feet. Claire continued, voice shaking. "Mark wasn't planning to hurt you. He was trying to protect you. That's why he's been acting strange. That's why he's been lying. He's in something he doesn't know how to get out of." I shook my head. "I don't understand." "Protect me from what?" Claire took a deep breath. "From the person who filmed that video." "And who is that?" I whispered. Claire hesitated. And the fear on her face told me she knew more than she wanted to admit. Someone who has been following him for months. Someone who knows his schedule, his weaknesses, his marriage, everything. Someone who knows how to push him exactly where they want him. My skin crawled. Why? Why blackmail him? Because Marco's money, Claire said. A lot of money. Money he borrowed without telling you. My breath froze. Money he said was for business, she continued, but it wasn't. He messed up, Em. He got involved with someone he shouldn't have, someone dangerous. My mind reeled. My chest tightened. I sank onto a bench, Milo pressing close to me. Haley stared at Claire, stunned. Why would you know that? Why didn't I know that? Because, Claire whispered, Mark came to me. He didn't want to tell you. My vision blurred. Mark had gone to Claire. Not to me. Not to his own sister. To my best friend. It felt like betrayal, but also, it didn't. Because Claire's face held no guilt. Only fear. So you're saying, Haley said slowly, that the messages, the photos, the video, were sent by the same person who's been blackmailing him? Claire nodded. Yes. And they want Emily involved? Haley asked. Yes. Why? I whispered. Claire looked at me as if the answer pained her. Because the fastest way to control a married man is through his wife. The world went quiet. Only the waves moved. Only Milo's soft whine broke the silence. Haley leaned against the wall, pale. Emily, this is worse than cheating. I whispered, is he in danger? Claire nodded. Both of you are. My heart skipped. Why me? Claire's eyes filled with tears. Because you're the one thing he can't afford to lose. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt something unexpected. A sharp, painful flicker of compassion for the man who broke my heart. But compassion wasn't enough. Not anymore. I stood up slowly. Then I need to know everything. I need to watch the video. Claire grabbed my wrist. No. Watching it will put a target on you. Haley grabbed my other hand. Watching it might save you. Both pulled. Both begged. The pure wind whipped around us. My heart pounded. My fingers tightened around the flash drive until it bit into my palm. My entire marriage. My future. My safety. My revenge. My truth. All of it hung on one choice. And then, before I could choose, my phone buzzed again. A new message. From the unknown number. It said, if you want the truth, come to room 312 alone. Claire read it over my shoulder. Haley read it too. Both gasped. The cold air wrapped around me like a hand. Because the message wasn't the frightening part. The frightening part was the image attached to it. A live photo. Someone had taken it from inside room 312. And it showed Mark. Sitting on the floor. Hands tied. Mouth taped. Eyes wide. Terrified. Alive. Looking directly at the camera. And behind him, standing in the shadows, was a figure in a gray hoodie. The same one from the lamppost. The same one who had been watching us. The same one who had been sending the messages. Claire covered her mouth with her hand. Haley stepped back, horrified. My knees nearly buckled. The final message popped up instantly. You have 1 hour, Emily. If you want your husband alive, come alone. White heavy check mark, 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 white heavy check mark. Emily thought her 5th anniversary trip would save her marriage, but it turned into the darkest, most shocking weekend of her life. First, her husband disappears to the bathroom for an hour. Then she finds a suspicious photo. Then a stranger sends her a message saying, you deserve the truth. But nothing could prepare her for the twists that followed: cheating, betrayal, a mysterious woman in room 312, an unknown number sending evidence, and a video that could destroy everything. And just when Emily thinks she's ready to walk away, a new message arrives. If you want your husband alive, come alone. This story is filled with suspense, heartbreak, hidden secrets, blackmail, and shocking reveals that will leave you breathless until the very last second. If you love dramatic revenge stories, mysterious text messages, shocking twists, and emotional storytelling, this one is for you. Keywords, SEO optimized. Anniversary trip gone wrong. Cheating husband caught. Room 312 mystery. Dark revenge story. Shocking betrayal story. Emotional storytelling. Best revenge stories 2025. Dramatic cheating story. Marriage betrayal drama. Suspense thriller narration. Twisted relationship secrets. Toxic marriage story. Dark relationship mystery. Cheating husband exposed. Dramatic storytime video. Hashtags. Hashtag storytime, hashtag revenge story, hashtag cheating husband, hashtag marriage drama, hashtag plot twist, hashtag suspense story, hashtag betrayal story, hashtag narrated story, hashtag drama series, hashtag emotional story, hashtag mystery story. Hashtag true crime style, hashtag TikTok storytime, hashtag YouTube storytime, hashtag story narration, hashtag plot twist story, hashtag relationship drama, hashtag shocking revelations.